조던 피터슨 교수와 페미 아나운서 남녀 동일임금에 관한 인터뷰를 진행합니다. 여자 아나운서는 시종일관 공격적인 태도를 일관하는데요.
Here in the UK, for example, let's take that as an example. The gender pay gap stands at just over 9%. You've got women at the BBC recently saying that the broadcaster is illegally paying them less than men to do the same job. You've got only 7 women running the top FTSE 100 companies.
Yeah.
So it seems to a lot of women that they're still being dominated and excluded, to quote your words back to you.
It does seem that way, but multivariate analysis of the pay gap indicate that it doesn't exist.
But that's
So
just
you
not
do,
true,
you-
is it?
That's
I mean, that
absolutely
9% pay gap, that's a gap between median hourly earnings
Yeah.
between men and women.
But there's
That
multiple,
exists.
yeah, but there's multiple reasons for that. One of them is gender, but it's not the only reason. Like if you're a social scientist worth your salt, you never do a univariate analysis. Like you say, well, women in aggregate are paid less than men. Okay, well, then we break it down by age, we break it down by occupation, we break it down by interest, we break it down by personality.
But you're saying basically it doesn't matter if women aren't getting to the top because that's what's skewing that gender pay gap, isn't it? You're saying, well, that's just a fact of
No, I'm
life.
saying
Women
it
aren't
doesn't
necessarily
matter.
going to get to the top.
No, I'm not saying it doesn't matter either.
You're saying
I'm
it's a
saying
fact
there are
of life.
multiple reasons for it.
Yeah, but
and that
those
aren't being
reasons,
taken into
why
account.
should women put up with those reasons? Why should
Why should
women be
put up with it?
content
I'm not
not
saying
to
that
get
they
to the
should
top?
put up with it. I'm saying that the claim that the wage gap between men and women is only due to sex is wrong, and it is wrong. There's no doubt about that. The multivariate analysis have been done. So I can give you an
You keep on
example.
talking about
Wait a second.
multivariate analysis.
Let me give you an example.
I'm saying that 9% pay gap exists.
Yeah.
That's a gap between men and women. I'm not saying why it exists, but it exists. Now,
Yeah, but
if
you
you're a
have to say
woman,
why
that
it
seems
exists.
pretty unfair.
이 아줌마는 어떻게 아나운서 된 건지 임금 차이가 단순히 성별에 의한 게 아니다고 얘기하는데 남의 이야기를 전혀 안 듣고 있죠. 계속 답답한 얘기를 하는데 지금 혈압 높으신 분들은 여기서 멈추시고요.
Why it exists.
But do you agree that it's unfair? If you're a woman,
Not necessarily.
and on average you're getting paid 9% less than a man, that's not fair, is it?
It depends on why it's happening. I can give you an example. Okay. There's a personality trait known as agreeableness. Agreeable people are compassionate and polite. And agreeable people get paid less than less agreeable people for the same job. Women are more agreeable than men.
Again, a vast generalization. Some
It's not
women
a
are not more
generalization.
agreeable than
Yes,
men.
that's true, but that's right. And some women get paid more than men.
So you're saying that by and large, women are too agreeable to get the pay rises they deserve?
No, I'm saying that that's one component of a multivariate equation that predicts salary. It accounts for maybe 5% of the variance, something like that.
So surely
you
the
need about
answer-
you need about another 18 factors, one of which is gender. And there is prejudice, there's no doubt about that, but it accounts for a much smaller proportion of the variance in the pay gap than the radical feminists claim.
Okay, so rather than denying the pay gap exists, which is what you did at the beginning of this conversation,
I denied it existed. I denied it existed because of gender.
okay,
See, because I'm very, very, very careful with my words.
so the pay gap exists, you accept that, but you're
Yes.
saying, I mean, the pay gap between men and women exists. You're saying it's not because of gender, it's because women are too agreeable to ask for pay rises. So
It's
make
one
them-
of the reasons.
Okay, one of the reasons. So why not get them to ask for a pay rise?
I've
Wouldn't
done
that
that.
be a fairer
I've done
way
that
of proceeding?
many, many times in my career.
And they
I've
just don't.
counseled. Oh, they do it all the time. You can. It's so. One of the things that you do as a clinical psychologist is assertiveness training. So you might say, often you treat people for anxiety. You treat them for depression. And maybe the next most common category after that would be assertiveness training. And so I've had many, many women, extraordinarily competent women in my clinical and consulting practice. And we put together strategies for their career development that involve continual pushing, competing for higher wages, and often tripled their wages within a 5-year period, teaching
you
them how to
celebrate that?
negotiate. Of course.
So
Of
do
course.
you agree that you would be happy if that pay gap was eliminated completely?
It
Because
would
that's all
depend.
the radical feminists are saying.
It would depend on how it was eradicated and how the disappearance of it was measured.
And you're
These
saying
things
if
you
it's at the
can't- you
cost
can't-
of men, that's a problem.
Oh, there's all sorts of things that it could be at the cost of. It could even be at the cost of women's own interests. So,
Because they might not be happy if they get equal pay.
no, because it might interfere with other things that are causing the pay gap that women are choosing to do.
Like having
Well,
children.
Well, or choosing careers that actually happen to be paid less, which women do a lot of.
But why shouldn't women have the right to choose not to have children or the right to choose those demanding
이건 뭐 본인이 선택할 수 있는 문제죠. 예.
They
careers?
do. They can. Yeah, that's fine.
But you're saying that makes them unhappy, by and large.
I'm saying that no, I'm not saying that. And I actually haven't said that so far. in
You're
the
saying it
program.
makes them miserable.
No, I
at the
said that
beginning.
what was making them miserable was having weak partners. That makes them miserable.
Right.
Sure.
You don't think there are barriers in their way that prevent them getting to the top
Oh,
of
there
those
are some
companies?
barriers, yeah, like men, for example. I mean, to get to the top of any organization is an incredibly competitive enterprise. And the men that you're competing with are simply not going to roll over and say, please take the position.
So let me come back to my
absolute
question.
all-out warfare.
Is gender equality a myth?
I don't know what you mean by the question. Men and women aren't the same, and they won't be the same. That doesn't mean they can't be treated fairly.
Is gender equality desirable?
If it means equality of outcome, then almost certainly it's undesirable. That's already been demonstrated in Scandinavia. Because in
What do you mean
Scandinavia,
by that? Equality of outcome is undesirable.
자격도 안 되는 사람을 특정 업무에 강제로 배치하게 되면 업무가 제대로 돌아가지 않게 되죠. 깊은 사고를 하지 못하는 거죠. 예, 여자 진행자.
men and women won't sort themselves into the same categories if you leave them alone to do it of their own accord. I've already seen that in Scandinavia. It's 20 to 1
So-
female nurses to male, something like that. It might not be quite that extreme, and approximately the same male engineers to female engineers. And that's a consequence of the free choice of men and women in the societies that have gone farther than any other societies to make gender equality the purpose of the law. Those are ineradicable differences.
남녀가 서로 잘하는 부분이 다르죠. 차이를 인정하고 자연스럽게 선택하면 되는 건데 국가가 나서서 엔지니어의 50%를 여자로 채우는 게 옳은 걸까요? 이런 식으로 국가가 개입하는 게 과연 옳은 건지 이런
Less intelligent than men, by and large?
No, they're not. No, the data on that's pretty clear. The average IQ for a woman and the average IQ for a man is identical. There's no difference to speak of in conscientiousness.
Why are they not
Feminine traits,
Why
let's
are they
say.
not desirable at the top of feminine traits? Why are they not desirable at the top of
It's
business?
hard to say. I'm just laying out the empirical evidence. Like we know the traits that predict success.
But we have freedom of speech in that. Why should your right to freedom of speech trump a trans person's right not to be offended?
Because in order to be able to think, you have to risk being offensive. I mean, look at the conversation we're having right now. You know, like you're certainly willing to risk offending me in the pursuit of truth. Why should you have the right to do that? It's been rather uncomfortable.
I'm very glad I put you on the spot.
Well,
I'm
you
very
get my
glad that I have
point. No, but you get
exercised
my
my freedom of
point.
speech.
You get my point. It's like you're doing what you should do, which is digging a bit to see what the hell's going on.
So
And
do
that is
you-
what you should do. But
and
you're
you
exercising
think-
your freedom of speech to certainly risk offending me. And that's fine. I think more power to you as far as I'm concerned.
Except you haven't sat there and I'm just trying to work that out. I mean,
Ha, gotcha.
you have got me. You have got me. I'm trying to work
about
that through in
time.
my head. Yeah. It took a while.
It did, yeah.
Took a while. You have
지속적으로 피터슨 교수를 궁지로 몰아넣으려고 시도했는데 피터슨 교수의 논리에 발렸죠. 예, 지금 자신의 하는 주장에 대해서 깊은 사고를 한 뒤에 말을 해야 되는데 오늘 보는 내내 굉장히 답답했고요. 고구마 100개 먹은 듯한 다른 걸 다르다고 사실대로 말을 하는데 이걸 자꾸 부정하니까 자꾸 이상한 말이 나왔던 것 같습니다. 네, 아무튼 다음에 더 유익한 내용으로 돌아오겠습니다. 시청 감사합니다.
women.
But there's
That
multiple,
exists.
yeah, but there's multiple reasons for that. One of them is gender, but it's not the only reason. Like if you're a social scientist, worth your
Multivariate
Let
analysis.
me give you an
but
example.
I'm saying that 9% pay gap
Yeah.
exists.
Yeah.
that exists, but it exists. Now,
Yeah, but
if
you
you're a
have to say
woman,
why
that
it
seems
exists.
pretty unfair.
It depends on why it's happening.
Vast generalization. Some
It's not
women
a
are not more
generalization.
agreeable than
Yes,
men.
that's true, but ha, gotcha.
You have got me. I'm trying to work
about
that through in
time.
my head. Yeah. It took a while.
It did.